All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the first post-lunch session on day 2 in room 1. As you can see, we've got a big panel here today, so I'm not going to waste any time getting into it. We're here to discuss unleashing the power of inclusive talent, building tomorrow's workforce. I'll actually leave each of the panellists to introduce themselves, starting with, I guess, their role in the industry and why they're here today. And then I'm going to come and hide down here and throw questions at them from the floor, and then towards the end we'll bring the a mic around if there's any questions from you guys as well. So I will immediately hand over to Tiff and we'll go from there.
Thanks, James. Hey everyone, I'm Tiff Waldron. I'm currently the president of Pink Boots Society in Australia, which is an international organization that empowers and supports women and non-binary people in all of fermented beverages through education. I'm also one of the founders of Beer Agents for Change, and I've been working in this industry for well over a decade, so have quite a lot of experiences kind of as a woman in this industry, but also really moving through from the very beginning through to leadership roles and really helping mentor really a younger generation into our industry, which is really exciting. And I'll throw to Bakes.
Hey, I'm Amanda Baker, or Bakes. I work at Lost Palms Brewing, literally just down the road. I've been in the industry coming up to about 9 years. I was invited to come in and talk today about kind of my experiences within this industry as queer, neurodivergent, and non-binary. So we got the trifecta today. And yeah, it was a great opportunity to come and talk to people and to kind of do my part to make a difference within the industry. So thanks for having me. Becky.
Cool. My name is Becky. I brew at Burnley Brewing. And can you guys hear me? Because I'm like far away from the mic. Cool. Dope. So I'm here speaking as a Hispanic woman and a woman that deals with bipolar, and I'm a woman, so I kind of got a trifecta going on too. And I'm excited to share my experiences around what I've personally dealt with as far as things like, workplace interactions, policies, things like interviews and stuff like that. And I hope that it helps everyone in this room to understand how we can be more inclusive and aware of people's needs. So, yeah.
I'm Dan, I work for Lallemand. I'm also a teacher at TAFE, also neurodivergent, and I actually have a writing condition called dysgraphia. I'm also on the committee of people and culture for the IBA.
So I'm Luke. I'm the head brewer at Sobah Beverages, proud whaleman man, and I'm part of this panel to talk about some of the issues that affect First Nations people in the industry, and she'll also give advice and point IBA members in the right direction regarding First Nations issues.
Right, thank you. And I guess a sort of pretty broad question first. I mean, why does creating sort of a diverse and inclusive industry matter? Like, maybe go down the line again.
I think we could start from probably what I would say is the most important piece is actually having a diverse workforce is going to increase your profitability, and there's quite a lot of research around that. But I think there's also really important consideration around inclusive perspectives of everything from how your tap room is presented through how your packaging is presented. And I think that for the future of our industry, it's really important for everything from all aspects of it to really consider inclusivity. We can't continue to grow if we're constantly marketing to the same audience, and so we really need to consider, if we want to grow our audience, to really consider a fully inclusive industry, both within and without, so for our consumers as well.
I think too, when I was presented with the idea of DEI within the workplace, it's just fostering it. Like it's down to safety as well. I think we're very lucky to be living where we live, and with the diverse industry, it's about fostering safe environments within the business and also like reflecting that to your customers as well. So, you know, coming forth with codes of conduct that, you know, you stand by, and it's not just we'll take care of this group of people, but then it doesn't, you know, kind of move over to the rest. So yeah, safety, inclusion, it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, so I was kind of gonna say the same thing, but that's okay. You stole it from me. No, I'm joking. Everything that's being said is amazing. So I guess off that too, I would like to, I guess, like from that mention around like talent pool and how important it is to have different types of individuals in your business, because the more you bring in different people from different backgrounds and different roles, the more opinions you have and the more creativity you're fostering. And that also helps with the overall productivity of the business, because then when people feel safe and they are around other individuals, then they're gonna feel like more positive to work better, to be better, to stay in your business. And so that's a really important thing, again, from profitability to keep and retain your talents, right? So
I think it's also just being more aware. And if you don't understand something or something that's different culturally, ask. Just being more aware of what you're saying, what you're thinking, you know, before you start talking. And, you know, asking feedback, asking questions, I think is a big thing. Just being more aware.
Yeah, I think you have to be representative of the community that you serve. So I think if you're inclusive in that way, it'll feed through to the products that you make for your customers. But I also believe that if you've got an inclusive workplace, like was said before, I think it's going to really help with retention, which definitely helps you have brand ambassadors for life rather than just employees. Because if you have a nice, safe workplace for them to be in, and you meet those needs and you have those discussions, they're more likely to stay, and your retention's going to be better, and they'll champion your brand. Even if they leave, they'll find other people who have the same beliefs. So, yeah.
Any of you jump in on this one? I mean, what are the most sort of common sort of issues or sort of incidents or experiences that you've had, almost maybe not even the most common, but the ones you kind of that should be the sort of easiest for the industry to solve? Like, what sort of issues have you faced over your time in the industry?
yeah, I'd like to say something about that, because I mentioned before interviews. So I think that that's an area where we can improve and foster safety. So for myself, as an example, I went into an interview and the employer asked, what can I do to help with any special requirements that you might need in your role? And never gotten that before. I think it's something really simple and easy to ask. So then I felt comfortable saying, I'm bipolar, so I can't do night shifts, which some brewers have to do, like graveyards, because it severely impacts my overall mental health. So not only did this employer say, all right, we won't do night shifts for you, we will also provide you mental health days, so when you need it, you take it, no question, we're here and we'll always be supportive of you. So that's a really small thing that makes an incredibly huge impact on not only the individual like myself, but also, yeah, sharing that story with other people in the industry, so then it encourages people to want to work, there, so.
Anyone else on?
I think just kind of being aware of like where we sit at the moment is 2023, even making small differences, like as long as you're moving forward, you're moving in the right direction, like inclusive language, the way you portray your business to, potential employees and, the outside public, it just makes it so much easier for people to kind of get behind your brand and know that, one, they're going to be respected, they're going to be safe, and, it's just not one type of person is welcome here and no one else is. It's little tiny changes that everyone can make that really makes a difference.
And how do we think the industry's going, like now compared to, say 5-10 years ago? I know most of you have been in the industry a while. Are you seeing like a positive trend, or is it I'm sure there's still a way to go, but how do we think things are going?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, with First Nations issues, I found that a lot of brewers are worried about saying the wrong thing, and they don't know how to deliver it right. And we're definitely, even as part of the IBA, we're going to start giving out some more information about, each issue of everything indie. We're going to start having a column in there, and it's going to start addressing some of those issues, whether they be First Nations or any of the other categories that we want to discuss. It's about giving the IBA members the tool to move forward with those sort of things, definitely.
Oh, actually, working with that, as part of the Beer Agents for Change diversity survey from year 1 to year 2, year 1, less than 30% of people who worked in breweries in our industry in Australia had known if there was any acknowledgement of country anywhere in their brewery, on their packaging or anything, and that more than doubled over the course of 12 months. So I think that's actually almost like there's some data there that shows absolutely not only that there's change, but that people really care and they notice it. And just on the last question, in terms of things that have changed a lot, I know from a Pink Boots Society perspective, where I did a survey of members this year as well, and their experience in their careers in the workplaces. And one thing that comes up constantly is bathrooms and uniforms. Consideration of really kind of inclusive uniforms is really important, especially not just on the brewery floor, but also consideration of tap rooms and bathrooms. Again, on production side, it's really important that everybody has a bathroom to use. And also from a consumer side, that every person in your brewery feels safe and like that there's a lock that works, there's no way to see in, and that everybody has a bathroom that they're able to use. It's these things that seem so obvious and simple, and yet still, even after all this time, that's something that our members are saying is still an issue that is a consideration.
Where can brewery owners, bar owners, whatever, festival organisers look for guidance if they're trying to be better in this area?
In terms of all diversity and inclusivity?
Obviously been stuff going for the IBA, but, are there people that people can turn to, or is it a case of just talking to people, across the board?
Yeah, Australia actually does have a diversity organization. I think they have so much on there. It's all available for free. And that's something that's, all businesses in Australia. And I think sometimes we often forget, because we get so passionate about being in beer and brewing, that it's a small business and there's so many resources available that affects all of us just as much as every other small business. So things like bathrooms and uniforms across all production, across all manufacturing, but also across every venue and small business has that same issue. And then I think that other piece is around code of conduct. I think it's really important, especially for festivals and especially anything consumer facing as well, to be able to share that with not just your staff, but also for people coming in to know that it's a safe space. And I know the IBA actually has resources available to members. They're all on the website. You can download the template and really kind of build from there. So you don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to hire a lawyer to get started. It's all already there, and kind of the bones are there. And especially in terms of a code of conduct, I think it's really important to share that you have one as well. I think everybody wants to know that, because it'll make potential employees see that that's something you care about, and it'll make punters see it's something you care about as well.
I just wanted to actually name the organization that she's referring to. It's a Diversity Council of Australia. And so they have inclusive toolkits that you can download. And if you actually do become a member, they have, it's the Inclusive Employers Index, and it measures diversity and inclusion compared to a national index benchmark. So you can actually see where your business stands with other businesses across Australia. And also, I think you know a bit more about the IBA HR thing that's coming.
The HR toolkit is there. You can, as an IBA member, you can log in and get that information. And we're also working on, in the committee, some more fact sheets and information. I think it's also thinking about, awareness when you're writing the job advert and when you're coming in for the interview. I struggle writing things, so at work they pay for Grammarly, so that really helps me. But thinking about when you're writing that advert, that maybe, your written CV or whatever, once you come to the interview, you might perform more in the actual interview, but giving yourself a chance, I think, giving those people a chance like me, where I really struggle in written form.
Do you want to expand a bit upon the dysgraphia, and how it's sort of impacted you initially in your career, and how you sort of found a path through?
Yeah, so I just always thought I was a bit simple, to be honest, because I kept failing exams all the time. And I failed an exam on yeast and fermentation, which I know pretty well. And then I went and got diagnosed to a psychiatrist, and they went through everything. And then I learnt that I had I had dysgraphia. And I was actually trying to write it down. And the psychologist put his hand on my shoulder and said, "This is your condition, give me the piece of paper," and wrote down the condition for me. And once I knew what it was, and I looked into it, I then learnt to adapt. So I went back to that exam and I sat it again, and I got 93%. But it took me a long time. So I struggle sometimes if I'm writing, I can't get a word and I get blocked. So things like Siri, "Hey Siri, what's this word?" And then I can see the spelling, then I can write it and move on. So sometimes I just need a bit more time. And in the workplace, it changed once I sent it to Brew Crew and said, "Hey, I've got this." And then everyone's like, "Oh, now it makes sense. We never understood your emails." And people come up and people started checking my emails before I was sending them and helping with my presentations, because I was struggling to get that information out.
Now, looking on, it's very exciting times. The opening of Sobah's a week away, days away? How long?
So grand opening is September 30th.
Okay.
But we're actually running at the moment. We opened our gallery on the weekend. So First Nations gallery on the first floor, and we've got a native food cafe. And I should be laying down our first brew on Monday. But Australia's first non-alcoholic craft brewery is just 20 minutes down the road.
It's very exciting times. But you were keen to talk about, why you think Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are currently underrepresented in the beer industry, and maybe what could be done to sort of change that? Yeah,
definitely. There's a lot of reasons. I think Aboriginal alcohol use is often seen as a negative in the community, and it's highlighted in lots of newspapers and TV shows when it's actually not overrepresented how many Caucasian people have drinking problems the same as Aboriginal people. There's also a stigma around alcohol was used as a weapon against our people when it came to when it was introduced into the country. So there's a lot of stories where First Nations people try and stay away from alcohol completely, and we sort of got a due factor, not a trifecta, but being non-alc and being First Nations owned and operated, we do cop a lot of negative criticism. But I've done a talk with some students before who were First Nations, and I don't think they realised how many opportunities there were in the brewing industry. Whether you're an artist, you can do can design. If you're into legal, you can be a trademark lawyer. If you're into chemistry, there's a lab that you can have in the brewery. So there's I called it job for mob, because if we get out the information to students coming through, I think they'll realise that there's so many different pathways that can be in the brewing industry, and they don't have to be alcoholic. They can be like we do with native ingredients, but I think it's really exciting if we can get that information out there, and also write the ads for mob and encourage First Nations people to be involved in the industry. Yeah.
One that could be for anyone on the panel. What if breweries are worried about getting it wrong? So there probably will be some people out there who are just like, am I going to say the right thing or the wrong thing? Maybe won't address it. They'll sort of rather bury their head in the sand. I'm sure you've probably had instances where you've seen things, read things, someone said something to you the wrong, whatever it is. What do people do in those situations?
I've probably seen a lot of this over my time. I think Well, I guess if something has already gone wrong, I think the first thing that I always say is your first instinct initially is going to be to defend yourself, and that is the absolute last thing you should do as your first reaction externally. I think the first thing you need to do is truly understand why people are upset. Do not go into defense mode. Go into understanding mode, find out what's gone wrong, listen to the feedback, and even if it's not a change you can make immediately, I think it's just important about understanding it, understand how you can do better in the future, and make sure you're communicating that you understood there was a problem and what you can do, what you're either doing about it from your own, education, or how you might make changes in your business in the future. I think that's probably, nothing has to cost money. I know I've certainly had to have these conversations with people in breweries, and that initial reaction when it's, thank you for letting me know, I understand what went wrong. It doesn't need to be an immediate change if there's an understanding there that something did go wrong, somebody's upset. And honestly, it's very hard to call something out. So if something did go wrong and one person said something, that one person had the courage to say it, but you could pretty much bank on that a lot of other people might have been hurt or offended or upset by whatever it is that happened. And I think it's a really good piece to note here. That's why it's really important to include diverse perspectives in all of your decision making and leadership, because even if you may have, one woman, one queer person, one whatever, anything in the room, that person may not be in a position of power. They may be worried about their job. So just because that one person was in the room or might have seen something happen, they may not have been empowered to actually call something out or challenge whatever it is that somebody else has challenged once it's gone public. So I think it is really important to make sure that in your business, there is at least one other human on the table that has a diverse perspective. If at your table of your decision making, everybody pretty much looks and thinks like you're very likely going to be missing out on opportunities, especially when you look at innovation and especially when you look at inclusive hiring.
Anyone, anything to add on that?
I think, oh, sorry. You go first, Becky.
I was just going to say, I think it's kind of a good habit too for, even though, it might not have been your business that happened to, it could one day. And I think, it's all well and good for people to kind of make fun of it, like, oh my God, how is that so stupid? But, it does make a difference, that you have plans and policies in place for it not to happen. So I think it's a good chance for like the whole community, the whole industry to kind of take that feedback on and go, okay, I'm going to look at this internally. So, they've come forward and they said, okay, this was the problem, this is the solution, this is what we've done. How can I take that and make sure that it doesn't happen? Like it hasn't happened, but just making sure that it won't happen. So I think it's good for, the whole industry to kind of take space and take note of what's happening and take that on internally as well.
Becky?
So.
Oh, it's okay. We're good.
I think often you can think of some of the high-profile cases that we've written about over the years. The first apology or whatever it is makes everything 10 times worse, 9 times out of 10. And I think, that sort of thinking further ahead and not the instant reaction and owning things, whether it was intentional or not, I think, because often a lot of the hurt comes in the first round of trying to sort it out kind of thing. I've got some more questions. I thought I might throw it to the floor. Any questions out there at this stage? Yep, Pierre.
I always joke that I don't really need a microphone. I'm curious to know, I've had a lot of conversations with people, as I'm sure we all have, especially when things come up. But a common thing I get asked is well, what can I do to kind of help? Most of these conversations come from straight white guys, but what does allyship look like? What can I do? There's sort of this trepidation, I think, of I want to help, but I just don't know what action I can take. And I also don't want to, they don't want to be seen as, I'm the straight white guy coming in to give you a hand.
I've fielded a lot of those calls in the past. I think first thing, if it's a problem with somebody else in the industry, there is an opportunity for you as somebody who probably looks a lot like the person who may have screwed something up or said something wrong, that to say something. So it's not always on, to be honest, myself or Jane or Kiralee or one of the other women or queer people in the industry or a person of color. It is nice when somebody else is comfortable and has the bravery to also step up and say something. I think that actually means a lot. And then in terms of for the future, what else you can do, I think look around you and find somebody who may be younger or in a more junior position and take the opportunity to mentor somebody who doesn't look like you or think like you or wasn't brought up in the same way as you. And I think that that could be really beneficial for the future, to take the opportunity to just mentor one other person.
I think also on that, something that I found really positive in my experience with my mental health issues is we have had like an awareness session where I was able to talk about my experience with bipolar, because when people think of bipolar, they just think, oh, you're really angry and really sad. But, you know, there's a lot more to it. There's a lot of layers to it. And like, it's a hard thing to start because you have to make sure the people involved feel safe, right? But if you, I guess as an employer, just keep continuously offering a space for people to talk, accommodations, like I said before, adjustments, then people will feel okay to discuss that. So it was a really, really positive session where, and it wasn't just myself, like a lot of people in my team have depression. I'm sure like, you know, we're all very aware, like in this industry, that's a really big problem because we're around alcohol and all sorts of things. So being aware of everyone's experience was really, really helpful. And now we can help each other. So I had a massive breakdown at the brewery and they knew I'm gonna give Becky her space and not just ask, are you okay, okay? Because they know I'm having an episode and they're just gonna allow me to breathe and calm down, and then they'll check in on me after.
Just a little thing that you can do that we do at Sobah is we have a weekly check-in. See how people are, how's their mental health, and it's just open and honest, and it doesn't have to be about work. What did you get up to on the weekend? How are the kids? Things like that. And just establishing those open communication efforts really help for an inclusive workplace, and it makes it a more comfortable place to work with, I think.
Interesting what saying there, Becky. The first presentation we had in here this morning was about mental health in the workplace. One of the stats I took down was that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are twice likely to commit suicide between age 15 and 44, and LGBTIQA 3 times as likely. So, I mean, coming from another way, if you are someone experiencing issues, like what are the support networks out there for people?
Yep. So I think like it's a bit hard. Maybe someone else can comment on this, that you might, like, I don't know if you know of actual groups or organizations within the industry, but for myself, I actually just kind of went outside of that and went to a bipolar support network and was able to just talk to them about what I'm experiencing and just get a sense from that group of how to best interact with my team and communicate to my team what my needs are. But as far as the industry goes, from my understanding, there's not much within it, and that's something that, like, I'm also part of the committee that I really would like to work on and see, like, improve. But like Tiff, you might know a little bit more than I do as far as in the industry.
Around mental health, honestly, I think probably you or maybe even Luke probably knows in terms of resources better placed even than I would. But I think it's really interesting, and I know that you've certainly done stories in the past, Crafty, and you always make sure to include resources at the bottom of every story, which I think is really important. Just even sometimes when I'm looking for it, I'll go back to a story and scroll down just to see what the resources are so that I can share them again.
I'll go back to the floor in a second, but I was thinking, any sort of positive examples you've seen within breweries or bars, you'd like to highlight? I mean, you've talked about the weekly check-in, you've talked about, the way one of your interviews has handled, Becky? Any other examples like you'd like to put out there in people's minds going, these are really positive things I've seen, but in terms of inclusivity or what have you?
An example for me was Sunshine Brewery up on the Sunshine Coast when I visited them. They hired a local girl to do some Aboriginal art. They've included the area. They did some research and included the area where they actually brew from. They've included that on their packaging and their letterheads and things like that. So that's a really good example of just taking a couple of little steps to acknowledge where they brew from, be part of that, and that's from straight white people, but they just, that was one thing that they did in that perspective. And I think if everyone has a genuine focal point to make a change, whether that be little and then next year it might be a little bit more, or as they see bad examples elsewhere and they can go, hey, look, this didn't happen to us, but we can still learn from that. I think we'll just continue to see progressive and positive change across the industry.
Any other examples that anyone wants to highlight?
I think a few of us briefly hit on the point of having a code of conduct for not only your staff but your customers that come in, and it's something that is very transparent, very big, large letters that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, everyone is welcome. And if anything goes wrong, then someone is going to take action. And then kind of from my point of view, where we are as an industry with people kind of putting their pronouns in their email signatures and things, it might not mean a lot to you, but there's someone out there who doesn't feel represented, doesn't feel included, that those little tiny things that we start doing will make a massive, massive difference. And I think it's, transparency from there onwards. So, if I've never met anyone, if you've got your pronouns there, I'm like, okay, so they are inclusive. They, have had this conversation. And then, you've got my pronouns, so there's not that, oh, yeah, they're Bakes, man, she's great. I'm like, oh, they're great. It's, it's not always, the people who are diverse shouldn't have to keep calling things out. So if people make a difference, take note, listen, I think there are a lot of little things that can be done very quickly to make a difference. And
I think it's important that it's a genuine part to it. I think as you would have seen with the acknowledgement to country, sometimes it's just a ticker box and there's no research behind it. They don't know what country they're on. If they just want to be inclusive in a certain area, it's just a ticker box. So I think it really has to be genuine, that you believe in and part of your genuine brand and what you want to back up. Because you will get social media backlash no matter which side you're on, but if it's genuine to your brand, I think you can answer to that, or do what we probably need as a professional Instagram deleter on the stuff that we get. Is you would be horrified with not only racial but the non-alcoholic space. We could hire a full-time person to manage our socials just to get rid of some of that hate speech.
And actually, how do you deal with that? Because I guess you might sort of go, it's obviously going to be hurtful, but is it something, it's taking time as well? Do you ever sort of think, well, maybe we need to, tone or change the message, whichever obviously you're not going to do, but it's, it must be something that is hurtful to deal with.
As you'll probably hear from Clinton's talk later on today, it's about having an authentic brand and it's being authentic to yourselves. So doing what you believe in is first and foremost. It gets to the stage where a lot of the time we'll just put, if you've got nothing good to say, don't say it at all, and thank you for the people who do support us and what we do. And we were on Channel 9 last week for the opening of our brewery. I think we're up to about 3,500 comments on the bottom of that post on Channel 9's site, and 99% of it's negative. And it's just, some of it's horrific. I'm not black enough, my brothers won't drink it, it's soft drink, what's the point? And then, there's all the different parts, but some of it's downright negative. And some of those social media outlets, actually you can report things. and the really nasty stuff we do, but the rest of it we just let sieve and just say, if you've got nothing else good to say, don't say it. Yeah.
Anyone else? Yep.
It's all right, I'm pretty loud.
Okay.
So just on more just as a reference, if anyone needs it. I started as a general manager of a brewery 3 years ago, and in the middle of the pandemic, and I got the sense that I needed to understand my team better than I did. I kind of got landed in it. And Relationships Australia have some great resources that I really went on. So they provided me with someone that came in, did anonymous kind of surveys with my team, checked into where their mental health was, where they thought they needed more support. We actually ended up with a grant to put towards what we call our community action plan. So that's we call them family lunch. We stop the brewery once a month, no talk of work, and it's our check-in process, and we take turns feeding each other as part of our community action plan. But all of those resources, I've literally just made a call and said, I don't know where to start here. And I get a sense that we need to work on this together. And Relationships Australia was fantastic. And they also put me in touch with the Tasmanian Suicide Prevention Network, who are also really amazing in coming up with some mental health action plans. And that sounds like it was a dire situation. It wasn't. It was just a workplace that had never addressed it. And so now we check in with each other, and we check in against some criteria that we set moving forward. And I can't speak enough about those two organisations that have national resources.
And that's great, and that sounds like something as a panel that moving forward we can definitely include a lot more of that information in like the Everything Indie and on the webpage. We're really hoping to get some some fact sheets out to all the members about what to do if you want to solve this, who to go to for that sort of stuff. So I think this is the beginning discussion of why we're here, and let's progress it forward, because that sounds like a really good outcome for your team and your business.
Thank you.
Probably got time for one or two more questions. Would you like the mic? I can squeeze there.
Thank you so much to the panellists. It's been wonderful hearing from you. I didn't really have a question so much as an offer. We brought our Pride banner today, so stand 64. If anyone was inspired to show their support on social media, you're more than welcome to use it as a selfie backdrop. Just pop on by, take a snap. Obviously,
I took a picture as soon as I saw it.
Obviously, Pride banner supports one particular diversity group, but it's a big rainbow flag that says everyone is welcome here. So tag whichever support group you want to tag in it. Everybody's welcome.
Yeah. Thanks, Kate.
That's great. Anyone else? Oh yeah. Go on then, Ryan.
Just sharing one experience I've had recently that I didn't realize and really blew my mind was starting from the job posting, you're likely not as inclusive as you should be. There are tools out there. If you Google gender bias decoder, there'll be several tools that pop up. For example, you pop in your job posting and it will show you how you're actually gearing the post towards a particular person or a particular group. So,
Yep.
Wonderful.
That's right.
Just hopefully a little quick one. One of the chats this morning, a lot about Beer Australia and sort of our story and where we're heading. I felt it left out a big part of that, and I think this sort of addresses part of it in building tomorrow's workforce. But I really think there's a bigger piece for diversity in Beer Australia, and I think when you think of the average beer drinker, or how the average Australian thinks of the average beer drinker, they don't think about this. They don't think about how the craft scene necessarily thinks about it. And I think there's definitely a bigger piece. I'd love to know if you guys have any thoughts around how do we make sure to sort of change that viewpoint, and how do we push that in the right direction so that 16, 18-year-olds coming up, they see beer drinkers in a different light.
Yeah, I'll just kind of touch on that really quickly, just because I've kind of done a lot of research around, especially just kind of gender-based side of things, and I think there's a lot of, again, research around everyone, this is everyone in your brewery, from your taproom staff to your salespeople. As a general consumer piece, people want to buy something from somebody who looks like them, and that really runs across the board. I think that's something that not as many people have considered, and obviously we do tend to do a little bit better in craft beer, but I think the other piece is, if we look at and I bang on about this all the time, people tend to take the data or insights and everything around who their drinker is, and they start to build their brand and their marketing strategy and everything about their business towards the market that they already have. And I get that, because traditionally that's how marketing strategies have been built. You build your, this is what my consumer looks like, and if every business in this room did what does my consumer look like, it's a guy named Stu, he's 37 years old, he's got a beard, he wears flannel. This is everybody's current consumer. And I find that so many, especially breweries, build their marketing strategy around their current consumer and very much forget that guy that already drinks your beer is gonna keep drinking your beer, but we really need to consider building that marketing plan, building your packaging and everything about the business that you're running to everyone that could be drinking your beer. And I think that that's something that's been missing in a lot of breweries for a very long time, is that they forget that if we want to expand our market, we can't keep marketing to the same people who are already drinking beer. We have to start building our audience to a much bigger audience that has to be inclusive, and that has to start from our inclusive hiring. And I will bang on about this for a million years. And if you've ever had a conversation with me, you've probably already heard it, but I will keep going with that.
And we'll make sure we're part of that Beer Australia. We'll make sure that those conversations happen.
Yeah.
And that they'll be really open to that as part of the IBA. So that. Yeah.
And I think this discussion could go on, but I'll get in a lot of trouble with Larissa. So we're going to have to cut it off now. So thank you, Tiff Bakes, who you can join later on for Craft Beer as Jump the Shark debate in the main room. Becky, Dan and Luke, thanks for coming along. As you said, I think having the discussion is a important point on the journey, so long may it continue. Thanks, guys.